welcome back to the Excited Minds podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me, and his name is TruthSeekah. And TruthSeekah, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone that's listening?
For sure, man. Thanks for having me. It means a lot. Thank you so much to invite me on your platform, man. I'm a spiritual hip hop artist. I do spiritual and esoteric hip hop. I'm an author, publisher, and host of the TruthSeekah podcast. Wear many hats and just try to find ways to articulate the beautiful message of life and love and abundance and spirituality. So, yeah, man, I put all of that stuff in my music and in my podcast and in my book. Everything's kind of married together. So, wear many hats.
Yeah, so where did you start out with spirituality? Because at some point in, with people that get involved with spirituality, there's like a calling to like seek these deeper
Mhm.
truths and
Mhm.
search the depths of reality for answers onto what all this means. So like where'd you start out with uh, trying to find the answers?
Yeah, man. I've been talking about it a lot, but I trace everything back, to be honest with you, when I was like 4 years old and having a sleep paralysis experience, waking up in the middle of the night with some type of shadow entities holding me down to my bed, like laying on top of me. And I was so young, but the memory so vivid, and it left an impression with me to growing up, the type of movies that we would rent for the weekends and telling ghost stories. And I try to find ways to kind of weave that story in to ask people if they've ever had that happen to them. And the more questions you ask, you eventually start getting people who have answers or who have had similar experiences anyway. And I found out that a lot of people had had similar experiences, and it always intrigued me, even as a teenager. So I was kind of into that conversation, which leads to the supernatural, which leads to metaphysics, and eventually to witchcraft. To be honest with you, that's where it led me. So that encounter led me as a teenager looking into the occult and Wicca, Satanism, all of that stuff combined as a teenager.
Yeah, I remember like when I was younger, I always had this sense of paranoia or fear growing up. So I'd be in my room, my brother, or like, so I would have to go take a shower and I was in my room by myself. And I would tell my older brother, I was like, hey, can you stand outside the bathroom just in case something happens or whatever? And there's like nothing to be scared of,
Yeah.
but
Oh
I
yeah.
had a sense of always this lingering,
Something's there, man.
yeah, something was there, but like to your physical eyes, nothing's there. And so I'd always
Mhm.
be scared of just nothing really from outsider's point of view. And then as I started to get older, like I guess that feeling of paranoia led me to actually looking at being into haunted house stories. Ghost Hunters on Travel Channel was something that I used to watch a lot.
Yeah.
So all that kind of uh, spiritual stuff was when I started looking at even like UFO stuff. I'll research it on YouTube, and it was very fascinating.
Yeah.
So just that small fear led me down a path of discovery for what is happening inside of me and how can I articulate what's going on with UFOs and stuff too. That was something that also uh quite interesting. What happens to your mind when you involve yourself in this kind of stuff? So one was like first, so you had sleep paralysis, and also like looking at shit, listening to music and everything too. Like you talked about UFOs, so like
Hmm.
what's your kind of doorway into that kind of stuff as well?
Fear for at first, just being a kid and seeing movies, seeing and most of the UFO movies were scary movies. Like they're coming to abduct you and it's based on a true story and all this kind of stuff. And then they're kind of like the monsters that are real. Like you don't want to see these, right? Like even in that ghost thing that you're talking about, or being scared of something outside the door, but the alien thing was always in the back of my head that these monsters could be real and they'll come get you and kidnap you and just torture you and not kill you and you'll never come home. Like that was the stuff we watched on television, like unsolved mysteries and um the movie Fire in the Sky. It was they portrayed it in a sense of horror movies. So I was afraid of it, like deathly afraid of aliens, but I was intrigued. Like there was something deeper into the horror. Um, but when I'm at home by myself, 2 in the morning, 12, it doesn't matter. Like I know they're coming for me kind of thing as a kid. So I was like super paranoid, like you're saying. So that was my introduction to that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until um, maybe 2009 or so, um, I started researching a little bit more, 9, 10, and then finding Christian material about aliens. And all the Christian material fed into my fears, was like, hey, they're demons. Aliens are demons, and they're the Nephilim, and they're fallen angels, and they're abducting people and mutilating cattle and all this kind of stuff. So it was still coupled with the fear stuff. And I did a couple months of research under that kind of stuff, but I had seen videos of people going out. There's a guy named Prophet Yahweh, is the name he went by, and he went out and he prayed, and they brought the news crew out, and he lifted his hands and he said, I'm going to show you guys that I can summon UFOs on command, and I learned how to do this with the Hebrew version of the Bible. I seen that video, and he goes out, and ABC or whatever, the news crew's there, and literally these balls of light show up during the day, these objects that are reflecting light, as he prays for them to come. And I just got chills when I seen that video. It's like, wow, there's something to it. And then he's using the Bible and it's doing it in a good way. So that kind of opened me up from the Christian fear stuff to look a little bit deeper into people who weren't Christians, who I felt like the Christians were biased, like everything
Mhm.
had to be a demon. So so all of the information was coupled with, yeah, they're demons, but kind of thing. And I didn't think that that was a fair look at the phenomena. And so that's what led me deeper into the study of ufology, and eventually going out, reading the Bible, and going out and having encounters like what I saw that man do, Prophet Yahweh. And I would have encounters under the stars where they would show up and they would start lighting up all in the sky and going into stars, and stars would pulsate, and a little light would come out of the star and fly away. I mean, just things that blew my mind to know, like, oh, this is real, and there's something deeper here. They know what I'm thinking. They're communicating, they're telling me where to look. So it went from 0 to 1,000 really quick.
Yeah, and what does the word Merkaba have to do with what you just described right there?
Yeah, the chariots of the Lord, the chariots of Ahaya. That's what the word means in Hebrew. In the Bible, it talks about the chariots of fire, and the word chariot is the word Merkaba, and it essentially means light body vehicle. And so they said that they would follow God, or the gods, the lords, through the desert as a Merkaba, and it would be a cloud by day and a flame of fire by night. And there's so many of these experiences that are in all of the ancient texts, but specifically the Bible, which is I'm a student of, and it makes perfect sense when you go out and they look like some type of orb or some type of blur, like a cloud, but then at night they turn into this blazing fire. And so it just started making sense. And there's so much in the Bible on this stuff in a beautiful light, and not in some demon light that we've been told.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because I mean, there was one time, this is probably the only UFO encounter that I've had, but I live in Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles, so I was driving next to a freeway where you can see the big tall skyscrapers right there. And then above one of the skyscrapers, I see this bright light, not like right above, but like off in the distance. And then it looked like it was like right above it. And it looked a little bit different than like an airplane. So like I was like, huh, that looks a little bit weird. And then it started like getting brighter. And the next thing you know, it just zipped off. And then I just remember seeing a trail of light and then it just was gone. And I've had also some things to where, say for example, I'm going for a hike and I could feel like myself all of a sudden get paranoid. and then I can kind of see the outline. It's almost like it's cloaked, for example, or
Yeah.
like
Yep.
translucent kind of color.
Mm-hmm.
And then my imagination just goes wild, and I start kind of getting a little bit weirded out by it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I can kind of see like a shape of like a UFO, and it's kind of interesting that these things are kind of like right in front of our face, but I think a lot of what's going on today is suppression of information and what we're really here for. I think
Yep.
UFOs can play some kind of picture in who we are
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things.
I think they
So
do.
yeah,
And people would say, why don't they intervene? Why aren't they? I believe they have to certain degrees and on like a much larger level, but even responding um, to, hey, are you out there? And then lights blink at you in the middle of the sky, or seeing the silhouette. Um, I think they're taking a risk when they appear um, because our military is at war with them. And the governments of the world, the kingdoms of this world that are against, I'd say, the kingdoms of heaven, what we call heaven, um, that are watching over us. And so, there's reports of them shooting at these objects when they appear and come out of nowhere. The they shoot laser beams at them and rockets and all types of things. So they there's a huge cover up, but ties into who we are. And if you know who you are, the powers that be can't tell you who you are. So if you know that you are a star seed or a celestial being that's down here in a meat, you've left your chariot vehicle and you're in a meat vehicle. You're down here stuck in this realm. You're trapped in a sense of a prison as a human to experience this life. But when you get freed, where are you going? And there's just this suppression of knowledge and ancient information for us to know who we really are. Because if we don't know who we are, we know that they can tell us who we are, and they can make it up and tell you that you're whatever they've told us, and suppress people, or your life has no meaning, or you're just here by chance, or you're a mistake, or whatever they wanted to. We came from monkeys, all kind of things.
yeah. So like, first, what is exactly is a star seed? Just for people that even don't know what that is.
Yeah. So the star seed is essentially a star, a tiny star that comes here and is birthed inside of a individual and is given the opportunity to allow that seed to grow within them, allow that light, that star to literally grow in their hearts and shine through their skin and permeate every cell of their being, which turns into your aura, that the light that is within you is shining so bright and so large that people can see it and people can feel it when they stand next to you. So a lot of what people believe is that the star seeds are here to expand their light, to be given a chance to take their name as a fixed star in the heavens.
Yeah. So I had a I had a dream on this. It was quite interesting. This is actually the first time I started becoming open to the possibility of astrology being real, because the mainstream stuff is kind of like jokes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what's gonna happen to you can basically see what happens today or whatever, but it's like doesn't really happen, all that kind of stuff. But in the dream, I was like up in the stars and everything. I was just hanging out there, just floating, and then I see like this constellation form like a funnel, and then I could see like a soul starting to travel down from that funnel, and then it was going on to the earth. So it's almost like when the constellations form a certain thing, it like emits a certain, I'll just put it in the terms of a laser beam down into
Energy,
the earth.
frequency, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
funnel though, like you said, that funnel is big. Um, the spiral pattern of how you generate energy, and literally the energy can go up into the heavens to the stars, or come down to the earth, or go into the earth as well. So for the souls of the beings that are trapped in the earth. And so you have in the Bible, you have the idea of a mountain, and they ascend up the mountain to go and talk to God or the gods. And at the top of every mountain was a prince or a god, and that governed a people, just like every constellation governs a people that was born under that sign. And so you have that idea with a mountain in the Bible, but also the idea of a well that goes into the earth or goes into the underworld, where spirits are coming up and down and back and forth onto people. And here is mankind in the middle as this ladder, allowing beings, spirits, personas, and ideas to travel in through their body, use their body as vehicles, some knowingly, majority unknowingly, but the higher ups knowingly. But it seems like they've done it for the bad spirits that are trapped, and giving them another chance and another dominion to speak into, as they move aside and allow those ancient spirits to possess their bodies.
Does that have anything to do with Jacob's ladder?
Yep, exactly what it is.
So
Says
what she
that,
just, yeah, go ahead.
it says you see he saw angels ascending and descending upon man. So as it comes, they come down to you and they go up, but they also go down into the underworld. And these are levels of density, of vibrational frequency, what we'll call a dimension. um, in the book of Revelation, it talks about these 12 levels of the New Jerusalem, which is like this celestial kingdom that exists right now, which are the dimensions, and how to get there. And there's certain angels that govern, and each one has a crystal that correlates with it, all kinds of things. All of that's within the Bible. But Jacob saw the vision, and then Jesus was like this physical um, um, fulfillment of Jacob's ladder. Because before he gets baptized, he tells Nathaniel, he meets him in the book of John at the beginning. He says, very soon you're going to see angels ascending and descending upon me and upon you. Because what I'm doing, you're going to be able to do it too. So you see these angels partnering with individuals on the earth, and and everything that was a part of their order, where they were from in the heavens. And yeah, so it gets a lot more cooler than just some empty dead rules and regulations, religion, if you will. But all
Like,
the holy books speak about this too. That's the cool thing. So to think that the Bible doesn't, well, they're left out, or that the Bible is the only one that does. No, every tradition speaks of something very similar to this experience.
so like, how do you like knowingly tap into these streams of consciousness, or like when when you talk about it in the book of Revelations, just the 12 tribes and everything. Like, how do you knowingly tap into, is there like, is there one particular that's a starting point, one stream that you enter into, and then is it like, do you start to go into other areas after that, or is it like you can just go to whenever, whichever stream you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like school. I really feel like this what Earth is. Earth is like a school, and even in your regular school, you have 12 grades, right? And then so you got 12 dimensions. And um, the cool thing is to be open to it. I don't even think you have to be open to it, to be honest, because that's because a lot of people are doing it unknowingly, and that means they're not intellectually open to it, but energetically they are, because they're living a life that is in concordance with said spirits. Whether it's if you are doing things that is conducive with the fallen spirits, the spirits that are, of manipulation, of hatred, of bitterness, if you're living that life, you're attracting those spirits to work with you, to embody you in those things. But if you are in this process of becoming love and wanting to love people and wanting to heal yourself and heal the planet, and you're of that, now you're already, by what you're doing, associated in this order. So when it comes time for the energy to come down from the stars or from the heavens or from the underworld, you're already a conduit, because you're already doing the types of deeds that are associated with that order, if you will. And so it seems like that has something to do with it, just by proxy of allowing the energy to move to you and through you. Um, but as that happens, it does get a little bit deeper. That you do figure out things to do. One of the biggest things is, again, to want it once you know it's a thing, which is to think about it, which is to dream about it, which is to study it, all of those things, so that when the energy comes, you want to be in alignment, like with your hands open to catch and carry the energy. And with your hands open simply means with your heart open, that you are a conduit for the next wave of what's coming.
So like, what does it look like to be a carrier of these energies? Because like, sure, I can have dark energy, sure, I can have light energy, but like, what does that look like acted out uh, in like
Yeah,
an
I
everyday
think,
scenario?
I really think it looks like, in the physical realm, Jesus and the disciples, supernatural abilities, healing the sick, raising the dead, leaving your body, like all of this stuff, like all of creation listening to you, the birds wanting to be your friends, money's attracted to you, everything wants to serve you. Like everything in existence comes to you because you are a good manager, and everything wants to be managed. It wants a judge. It wants to have order, and everything's in chaos and out of order. And it's that way for a reason, so that as a son of God steps in his rightful place, or her rightful place of who they are called to be on this planet, then everything comes into alignment in that order. And so you can't pretend that you know more. You can't pretend that you have more power and more authority. You can trick people, but you can't trick spirits, you know. And then the cool thing about it is, once you're operating in that alignment, you won't have to trick people. People see the light, they see the glow, they resonate with something that they've been looking for their entire life, which is Jesus with his disciples. These people who were like, wow, we've been waiting for you. We didn't even know it, kind of thing. So I
Mhm.
think that as you get into alignment, it'll start lining up that way, and everything comes in line to serve you, and to work out for your benefit. Um, Believing it, knowing it, experiencing it. And you mentioned paranoia a while ago, and it's something that many people have faced and do face. But I think that in the midst of that, that paranoia shifts. Paranoia is at a lower level, right? Because it can get really dark. The paranoia gets really dark. People take their own lives. People do things that aren't rational because of paranoia. They kill people who they think are their enemies, who they think are aliens. They crazy things they do under the spirit of paranoia. But on the opposite side of paranoia is pronoia. It's knowing that not every God and the demons and everything are out to get you. No, it's to know that God, the demons, the angels, everything good is looking to work with you and to help you. At one point, everything was against you and everything was your enemy. Now in pronoia, everything is here uh, for your good. And I think that's what you'll experience when you step into the higher realms and begin to believe it.
Oh, definitely. Like the neighborhood I live in particularly, I started noticing how it's very dark. Like there's some nights that I'll go out and you can just feel and pick up on like your skin will literally be running with negative energy. Like if you ever have you ever had that happen where you just feel like dark chills
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah.
something, yeah. So that stuff happens quite frequently. And I think a lot of it is because of actually a lot of people practice witchcraft there. So it kind of moves things in a direction when you talk about the streams of consciousness, like it moves the neighborhood in a direction that is not benevolent in a sense.
Hmm.
So at least for myself, what I've been trying to do is just observe it, not judge it, and allow myself to be in there, but like not of it in a sense. So I've had some kind of feeling of transcendence, even though like I get those feelings of like paranoia or evil energy, like something's watching you all the time. And that's something like how you mentioned, like you have to come to a place where you just observe it. Like it can actually help you wake up even more. So
Yeah, it's something to be said, and I'm a student of it. I'm no expert in it, but I'm starting to see um, a little bit of it that's hidden in the Bible, right? It talks about the spirits of the land, or the people of the land, and when an individual dies, when souls die, and a lot of them who can't go back to heaven because they're locked out because they're wicked souls. Those spirits get trapped here, And so they get trapped under the star system and under the region where they are. And so whatever, like you said, witchcraft has been done on that land, like that energy is seeped into the soil, and the people who have died and the people that they have killed, even in darkness, that energy gets trapped in the land. So I'm I try to find this stuff biblically to see how it taps in and how it fits in, because all things I believe are in there that talk about these really cool spiritual concepts that other traditions do and practice as well. But there's something about making amends with the spirits of the land, and allowing them to transcend, and allowing them to be released, and to heal the land. It actually talks about in the scriptures. Like, so looking at what that would entail to do a ritual, to live a life. First of all, you got to live the life, because there's no ritual if you don't live a life that's conducive with that. So I think many of us, even yourself, has already started in that. But something that I think it's a little bit more than just living the life. I think it does get into being intentional, and to be aware of the existence of such spirits that ruled over a city, and ruled over a town, and ruled over a state, or ruled over a family, and making amends and making peace with that, and then moving out further and further and further to make amends with the entire world. So if all of us are doing that, many of us are doing that with the lifestyle, right? Because it starts with that.
Mm.
You're not interested in those things. You're not interested in healing, past generations and those kind of things, unless your life is conducive with that. So I think that what we're going through on the planet is a part of everyone doing the inner work. Like, not everyone, but the majority. When the majority says, you know what, we're like voting with our energy. We're voting with our imagination. We're voting with our thoughts. We're voting with the way we treat our enemies and treat people. So though you may not be able to count it at the polls, that's fake, but you can count it in the spirit. And the angels, Christ, all of the divine beings are taking notice that humanity is ready for an upgrade. And I think we're going through that. And that's why there's so much pushback from the powers that be to keep people suppressed. And because when they do that, they lose power. And so the earth is shifting to a higher density, higher frequency, that is becoming a star.
Yeah, I like how you said like healing the land and everything. Because when I heard that, it's kind of like the way you articulate it is very good. Because when I've heard it from pastors say that kind of stuff, it didn't really make sense. But the way you worded it, where it's just like energetically, like you're healing the land, like I guess the soul of it. Because like we all pick up on vibes and frequencies when we enter
Yeah.
into buildings, things like that. So it's quite interesting to see and to actually start to think intentionally about the space that you take in and the energy that's in it, and learning how to like heal it and then be and emit light in that certain area so that it can open up portals or gateways to
Hmm.
higher dimensional stuff. Whether, and when I say higher dimensional stuff, it's like angels, information, or there be stuff downloaded into your intellect, or like something that you just feel deeply that you can, something that you feel deeply that will lead you to take a certain action. So that's how that's how I kind of see it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, now how that's done, and I mean, there's people smarter than me that they do ritual, and these are ancient practices, man. Well, it's been taken away, it's been hidden from us, so that we have to search and put the pieces of the puzzle back together. And so I'm doing that myself, and then as I find it scripturally, um, it's hidden, it's nuanced, it's hidden. It doesn't tell you plainly. The language was changed, so that you wouldn't know when you read it. You think you're reading about a well that somebody was drinking out of. The
Mhm.
well that somebody was drinking out of is water represents spirits, and well represents the spirits of the underworld. And they were going to drink from this well, and Jesus comes up and says, "Hey, you ain't got to drink from that well no more. You could drink from another well." And people think he was talking about water. These concepts are a lot more older than Western Christianity, and actually go back to um, the beginning of our world before it was destroyed, and the spirits that are trapped here from the world before. that died here and to help them ascend.
Yeah, I want to talk. This would be kind of interesting to talk about, but I kind of want to talk about darkness because I like your perspective on it. Uh, and when I mentioned darkness, it's like we can start out with like if you close your eyes, all you see is darkness. Like you don't
Mhm.
necessarily see anything. But when you start to connect to and go within, then you actually start to feel your energy and you start to go within this darkness. And
Mhm.
then going within this darkness, you start to face a lot of your thoughts, your feelings, uh, spirits, all these kind of things. So really when you close your eyes and you could say going into a state of meditation, you are starting to face and connect to the universe. So how have you navigated darkness? And I mean, what's your perspective on darkness too?
Yeah, there's so many perspectives. I try not to get it confused with evil, because there's that too, that comes into line with darkness. But darkness in general isn't evil, and it's needed. Like you don't know how beautiful light is, or even what light is, unless you have darkness. You have to have kind of be in both states of. The Bible says those who sat in darkness beheld a great light. Um, but any place that a seed is placed in, for a seed to open a womb, which is the word matrix, which is a place of darkness. Um, it is what darkness means. So you have the imagination, like you just said, the mind. Every thought is a seed, and so the thoughts have to go into the place of blackness, which is in a womb. You put a seed in it, and then it takes and it dies and it germinates, and then something else is birthed. And usually from a single seed, um, a tree that will feed many people, that will bear much fruit and produce more trees. Um, so that is the mind. That's your imagination. That's the womb of a woman. When two people when they have intercourse, and then a seed goes into the woman's, and 9 months later, a child is born. Right. Um, the earth is a womb. It's literally the word for the matrix in the Bible. And so the matrix opens up and a seed goes in, and then you close it, and then after however much time, each seed is different, then something shoots forth and you got fruit that's now coming into fruition. But it's a place of nothingness, a place of darkness. It's a place of infinite potential that you can literally go to in your mind and travel there, um, intentionally, to bring a seed. A seed is an offering in the Bible. They had different types of offerings that they would bring, and it's the same thing as a seed offering, a grain offering, a sacrifice, those kind of things. But they represented different things that they would bring and put into the fire or put into the ground, and then something was given to them in place of their seed. So for me, when it comes to darkness, that's one of the biggest things that sticks out, is a place of, um, where there's an exchange that happens. Something goes in there. Jesus talks about it quite in the literal, like when you go to pray, go into your prayer closet and shut the door behind you and pray in secret. Like turn the lights out, go into this place of darkness and pray. And he quite literally went into caves many times, into the darkness of caves where there's no light. And he is the seed. His life is the seed. So he goes in there and he prays in the secret place. Well, the word secret is the word secretion, which is a seed. It's the sperm of a man, or even water, juices even. But there's an exchange in the darkness, in the secret place, the sacred secretion. Something is left, and then when you come out, it's birthed there, and then it takes however long for that seed that was placed in there till you start to see it manifest in your reality. So you have
Mhm.
all of this. It's the same law that's at work on many, many, many different levels in your anatomy, in your mind, in the heavens, in the earth, um, in the spirit world as well. Any law that is a law, that is a law for any person, any being, it's practical on every dimension. And so if there was one thing that makes sense in one realm, it makes sense in all the realms, and it governs all the realms. And that's the beautiful reality of these dimensions that are just shadows of the one that is higher than it.
Yeah, so like and then when I mentioned like also darkness as well, like and tying into Christ, it's like when we go within, we're looking for that seed of salvation that was planted within us. And then once you tap into that, then that's when it starts to unfold from your being. So seeking Christ is no longer something that you do externally, but it becomes something that's internal. And then it starts to manifest its fruits through your being. So it, what happens too is I find is that you actually see light inside of you, whether
Mm-hmm.
that be DMT, I don't know what it is, but you'll see a light and then
Yeah.
you'll have an experience. So
It goes back to Genesis 1:1, 1:2, right there in the beginning. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. It is that darkness that when even when you go in to close your eyes into meditation, there's a spark. And when those seeds take, there's a spark that happens. So I have a meditation that I do, and I just I mean I got here naturally, of just focusing on the darkness and just trying to go into it like with your eyes closed, and then eventually what would happen for me is I would see a light, I would see a spark, and it would dance and it would move around and stuff, and it kind of like is moving in my peripheral with my eyes closed, but I'm taking me in, and like first I don't know how many times it took a long time, just like hey, focus on it, or hey, try to go inside of it, kind of thing. And then it's hard because it feels like it's moving. It's not just here doing this, but eventually, as it's kind of little, and then the more you focus on it moving, and it'll kind of go out of sight, and you're like, where'd it go? And it right back, and it gets closer and closer. The more you focus and try to draw into it, until it's like right here in front of you, and then there's like, and then you're like going into it, and then that's where you enter another plane of existence. And I got there naturally, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And now I just kind of articulate what's working for me and what's happening when I do that, and other people are doing the same thing, and even naturally have talked about the light, because I was on so many podcasts back in the day, like, hey, have you guys ever seen a light when you meditate? And they're like, yeah. Some people say yeah, other people say no, and I'm like, because I'm just a student, like I'm no expert. We're practitioners, man. We have to stay teachable, and if you stay there, more is given to you. You know.
yeah, that's what I find is like going into a more of a deeper state, you start to notice pockets of energy. And I've had that happen too, where I saw light and then I followed it too, because I'm like, my first thought was like, what is this? Like, I didn't even know what that was. So I just followed it around. But I didn't, when I started to focus on it and then it got closer to my, it would have seemed like it got closer to my face. Uh,
Hmm.
I had so much fear around it where I was just like, okay, I can't do this. Like, I felt I was gonna die and I felt so much dread. I was like, I can't. And
Yeah.
then it went away after that.
Yeah.
But
Usually, when something happens to me and I end it and it goes away, I'm usually done for that session. There's like, because it took a while to get there. I probably could try to refocus and do it, but it's like so much to learn and even think about. Like, what scared you? Like, why did you open your eyes? Because you get to the place,
uh,
even like you were talking about when you were little. I've been there where you feel like a being is standing right in front of you, watching you, like as you're doing it. And so it's like, what do I do? Do I open my eyes? Is it going to attack me? You got these weird
oh yeah.
thoughts that are trying to pull you out of the meditation,
Yeah, like I mean, I also had that happen too with the entities. It's very interesting because like we have so much programming around what the spirit world actually is. I think it's I think people are teaching the spirit world that don't know what it actually is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And there's a lot
for
of
sure.
ego around it.
Yeah.
Because like when I've entered into the spirit world, my ego would inflate, like would get inflamed, if you will. And then I started thinking like, oh, this is demonic. this isn't of God, and all these kind of religious thoughts.
Yeah.
And then when I finally decided to be like, I'm just going to observe these thoughts and not really judge them, allow them to kind of, or I'm going to ignore them. And so when I did that, then that's when I entered into the spirit world fully. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of like a neutral place of infinite potentiality. And
Mm-hmm.
all those things are kind of blocking me from fully stepping into what that is. So,
Yeah. And it's our own journey, it's our own mission. Like we have to step past it. Like we have to be the ones that say yes and like come upon your own free will, if you will. You like nobody made you
uh,
come here. Nobody can make you come. Like you're just cut off. You're just a spectator. But when you conquer that fear and you say yes and you come regardless of the consequences, whether those are demons that want to kill you or if it is an angel that wants to bless you. You don't know, but that's a risk that you have to be willing to take. And so that risk scares a lot of people, and rightfully so, right? I mean, it should. Like if you think demons are going to inhabit your body if you meditate, you probably should meditate. And the tricky thing is that if you believe that, a lot of times that's what happens because you're
yeah,
attracting it to you and you're doing it anyway. So for me, it's like get clear on the Bible, get clear on people's testimonies of that this is something that they did. They would go into trances regularly. What is a trance? What are these things that are brushed over in the scripture as one-time occurrences? No, no, no. These guys had practices, and those practices were synced with the sun, the moon, and the stars on when they would go in and what was to be done, what was required and expected of them according to astrology. So now you got trances and meditation. Now it's linked with astrology, all with the disciples, priests, and prophets of the scriptures. And
uh,
so when we share this kind of information openly, I get a lot of backlash on some of this deep stuff, and it gets way deeper. I mean, we've been going deep already, but when you share this with religious people in an open platform, I get so much like pushback and scrutiny and mockery and stuff like that. But at the same time, everything ain't for everyone. Like if you're not a prophet, if you're not a seer, if you're not called and connected to the stars, this is foolishness. This is silly to you. And so it's throwing your pearls before swine. But the cool thing about it is that when we're open and honest about this, the people who are supposed to get it, they get it. And it may be the majority that laughs and mocks and doesn't understand or even demonizes it. But if two or three people get it, who are waiting on somebody to speak their language and show them rather than tell them, it makes it all worth it. And I think that's what we're experiencing too. So those you mentioned people who are speaking on the spirit realm as experts, but they're just kind of making it up as they go or repeating what they heard another preacher say, kind of thing, versus like, hold on, I'm in relationship with these angels, these entities, and these elements, and they're not what you guys have told us that they were. And that person can argue you to until they're blue in the face, but they're speaking about theory. They're speaking about head knowledge, and they don't know. They're not because they're locked out of it. It's not for them, not at this level. And we have a lot of that going on. That's kind of like this narrative and people fighting in each other. But there's a beauty in like if it's not for you, it's not for you. But when you speak the same words to one person, they'll curse you out and tell you you're going to hell. The other person burst into tears and said, "Oh my God, I've been praying for somebody like you to articulate this for me." And so when you have those experiences and those contrasts, it makes all the misunderstandings and the scrutiny on all that kind of stuff well worth it.
yeah, yeah. My time is spent in the church. I remember, I mean, just to like be clear, like I haven't been in church in a while, but I have my own like spiritual discipline that I
Mhm.
found from someone who, well, he got his teachings from someone who was a Christian hermit in South Africa. So it was just it's the way of unknowing the thoughts. I guess the term you can throw in there is apophatic theology, which is the way of negation, denying, turning from your senses and going inward, things like that. But my time in the church, I remember being caught up in all the thoughts and all the emotions of like having to focus on just having one encounter to change your life. And I
Yeah,
think that a lot of the focus is like, I mean, so I was in charismatic circles, so that's really
me
what
too. Me too.
that's
Yeah.
what that's what really the main focus was. Like, all right, we're gonna be here and we're gonna press into the presence of God. We're gonna have this. You're gonna have a count that's gonna change your life. And then every week is like that. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, like you get the point, and you're chasing after an experience. Whereas in the way of a knowing, it's like you're surrendering, and each kind of present moment that you're in, you're learning how to like surrender in that moment, uh, whatever it may be, your
Because
entire existence. So
whatever encounter you do have or did have, even in the church, it was in that moment. That in this
yeah,
moment, I said yes. In this moment, I surrendered. That was just a concoction of a bunch of moments that led up to that. And then we try to recreate, we try to let people in, and we can, but like if it's not real for them, they're not having the same experience. Like they're just regurgitating yours, or they're pretending. I mean, there's so much that happens in chasing an encounter. I say that to say that every moment already is an encounter. And once you stop chasing them, but you're still open, I feel like then they come even more.
oh yeah,
Because I've been checked even in going into that light. Because in the meditation, I'll go there to get something. I go there to get understanding and downloads and knowledge. And I mean, so much is everything is there. It's the Akashic, it's eternity, it's all of that. But I remember going in there one time with a group of individuals that I was leading in that meditation. And we go in and we get to that place, and I finally break through and I go in. And it's a journey to get there for me. It's not instant. And I heard the voice of God speak to me, or what seemed like one of God's messengers. It was like, oh, another human. What do you want? What do you want?
mm.
And it was kind of like nonchalant, like it was like a trick question. What do you want? It was like, you always come here to get something. You always come here because you want something. You want your bills paid. You want so and so healed. You come here because you want something. What do you want? Like a genie in a bottle kind of thing. What is it? What wish can I grant you now? Kind of thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
it was the trick question really to make me think. And it was like, I answered the right way. It was just internally, but it's like, I don't want nothing. I don't want anything. Even though I did come, like, I don't want anything. And I just kind of like fell into this moment, just this, beautiful tears, which is then it was an encounter, right? My tears and my check, it was a punch in the chest. It's like, quit coming to get something, like come and bring something. I was like, I just want to say hello. And that was kind of like what God wants and what the realm requires. At first, like, everything's here, man. You get downloads and find out cool things. That's what you want, cool things. That's what you want. Say no, like God is really about relationship and about knowing who you are and communion and embracing and absorbing through fellowship. And that was an epiphany, but it was that trying to make something happen to be like, hey, I just want to say hello. I just want to, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to give me nothing, kind of thing. And I think that's where we're supposed to be. It takes a while to get there, but takes even more to stay there. But in that though, more experiences come. That's the thing. It's not like, oh, I have to quit chasing experiences. No, experiences are chasing you now. And you're right, you don't have to chase them. Every breath is an experience. Every billboard you pass by is an experience. Every dog that looks at you and smiles, and every child and everything. Every time you look at the sun, everything's an experience now. Once you get to that place of, that's when we talked about how you get into these levels. That's one way to get into the levels, is to look and see God and to see beauty in places where you once couldn't see it before. That's how you know you're in another level. Because before, you looked at everything as dreadful. You looked at everything as being against you. Everything sucks. Nobody loves God. You got all these, but then you get into this place like, he's here. Like, we're not begging, show up, Lord, fall on his Holy Spirit. Like, trust me, I've been in those church services. but it's like he already fell and he's waiting for you to fall. Why don't you go fall on your face? And when you fall, you get down on the same level that he already is. Your pride has to fall. You have to fall. You have to become less so that you can carry more and you can meet Christ in that level. So seeing every moment as a supernatural encounter, as a supernatural experience, every conversation, looking at it like it's your last conversation with that individual, and being to be present. It's hard to do. It's not easy. It seems simple. It seems so physical, but I'm telling you, it is an initiation into these higher realms of spiritual knowledge and truth and embodying the things of the spirit.
Yeah, and what comes to my mind is like, especially, it's like being in the spotlight, trying to stay in like a spotlight the entire time. And when we step out of that, that's when all the chaos and the destruction in our lives happen, when we're out of that say alignment or that
Yeah.
spotlight.
Yeah.
And it's an intense place to be in, though. I mean,
Yeah, I
you
think
can,
that's what the scripture says, the narrow path, you know, to be on
yeah,
that path that is narrow, like you're right where you're supposed to be. To
exactly.
to get off either side or to veer off, it's part of it. But the beauty is that you know that you're off. And you're, oh, that's the narrow, I gotta get back on it kind of thing.
Hmm.
But it is a place where you're in the flow, everything's working for you. You don't have to make nothing happen. You don't want to make nothing happen. You just want to be. And in that wanting to be, then you start being trusted with more.
Yeah. I also like in your songs you mentioned, I thought it was very interesting how you mentioned mushrooms and so I was going off the topic, but you mentioned like mushrooms and stuff and how angels, am I saying this correctly? Like angels would put them here for so that people can have higher dimensional downloads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, it's what many people who are um have more experience with that than I do. And I think a lot of our ancestors held to something very similar and believed that they were some type of communication device for the higher intelligences, for angels, or what some would call extraterrestrials or aliens or something like that. But yeah,
mm,
the angelic experience through various strands of um, plant medicine, whether that be mushroom or really any plant, to be honest with you, that there's a spirit or an intelligence behind it that is either from this planet, or the mushroom thing is quite interesting because it does seem to be from off planet. It's the only type of um, um, fungus that can grow in like a vacuum sealed tube where there's no air, and it can still grow and still function. So it's able. There's this idea that they come from off planet, and by ingesting them, you kind of get into tune to um, some of the higher intelligence, higher information.
mhm. And I want to also bring up, I had a dream on it too that gave me some revelation on it because I used to demonize the stuff and I'll still do it. So subconsciously I would demonize it, but I still do it, which
Hmm.
I mean, that led me to have bad trips with at least
I
weed.
shouldn't have did it. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had this very interesting dream where in the dream I had smoked weed and then done mushrooms at the same time. And then when I had done that, everything around me became clear and translucent in a sense. And it was like the presence of God was all around me. And I was just finding myself expanding and getting lost in it. And I was just like, whoa. And every moment seemed fresh and brand new. And I was just like, dang, this is quite nice. And then so instead of I was like exploring outside of my body in a sense, like I was feeling myself kind of just push out. And then when I turned and looked at myself, I saw inside of myself, I was like, damn, this is why I've been avoiding myself because I think I'm boring or not interesting to talk to. So the entire time, like I've been on the outside of my body experiencing a lot of like the bliss and the freshness and the newness. But then
Hmm.
I looked inside of my body and
Mm.
felt it and scanned it. It was just like, oh, damn. Um, and so I think with a lot of like psychedelics, things like that, I mean, I've only tapped into weed to be honest, but I knew that there's potential with it to spiritually grow. Like I've zoomed out on my headspace like a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that has to do with opening up your halo or the magnetism around your head. So usually those kind of things do that to you. So there's a lot of questions and answers I have around them on really their place in our lives. But you can easily throw it into the category in that scripture where it's like it's farm people. I don't know what verse it is exactly, but they say it's pharmakia, sorcery,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it can be used for sorcery. But for me, I still have a lot of questions around its
The sorcery
impact.
thing is anything that could be abused. The interesting thing with the sorcery, it's like coming from mixing something together and changing its genetic makeup. Like, and essentially, it's the definition of an abomination is to take something that was created to for this, but you used it for that, right? And that's anything that's an abomination in the scripture. So it's something that's been inverted. It's blasphemy. You've turned it upside down. So a lot of that stuff that was meant one way, but you're using it for evil. Something that God called good, but you call it evil. That's already, blasphemy. But then you go further and use it and actually use it for evil. Then that's an abomination. So
Mhm.
the interesting thing with psilocybin and mushrooms and things, you just walk out in the field, grab one, and pick it up. Oh, what's this? You know, funny because the word manna in the Bible literally means what is this? And there's something on the ground that they found. I said, oh, what's this? And they ate it. That's what manna means. And so definitely similar to the idea of when we were tribal people walking through the forest after a rain and seeing a mushroom and being used to eating different types of mushrooms and finding this one, hey, this may be a new one. What is it? Eat it, and then you go and see God face to face, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but to take it and like ayahuasca and stuff, and I'm not knocking anything or anyone, but you got to mix things together. It's like a witch's cauldron. You got to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and you burn it and you cook it, and then you have the magic concoction, kind of thing. So when it comes to pharmakia or sorcery in that degree, it makes a little bit more sense. There's something that you've created and changed the literally um, genetic makeup of it. You've combined it with other things so that you can extract this type of essence from it. But psilocybin is literally, oh, a mushroom. What is this? God put it here for us, man. Kind of thing.
Or like I would imagine when it comes to like mushrooms and stuff and how they actually appeared on the planet. Uh, I would imagine like how you go within and you can kind of see pockets of energy and stuff like that. I would imagine if an angel came in and like dropped it off, it would be like what do you call it? They would come in through like a pocket of time or whatever, and then just deposit it in like a flash of lightning like that, and then or maybe somehow change the structure of a plant like that. I mean, that's kind of what I think
Well,
about. Like, how
yeah,
does it even
because
get
I
in
mean,
here?
if you look at the genetic makeup, you got to zoom in. You got to zoom in because it is like everything is a combination of elements. Everything is, including us. Um, Spirits and angels and those things, they're combinations of elements too. Usually fire and spirit or fire and water. We are earth, air, fire, and water. We have flesh. We are all the elements combined together inside of a body. And so most of the other elements or things are just a couple different elements put together. They're not all of them. Um, so that's interesting to look at too. But when you look at the genetic structure of the molecules and those things, I think that is more of the language of its encoding or in its actual DNA. When you look at our DNA, when you look at, um, you know, whether we are double helix DNA or single strand organism or single cell organisms, like we have all of it. And so the
Yeah,
angels or the intelligence or the information um, may just be two of them combined, and that's really interesting to look into.
yeah. So when you take mushrooms, though, then does that mean your genetic structure is getting changed each time you're taking it?
Um, It's said to produce something that they found called neurogenesis, and it's where your brain. Remember, they used to tell us with weed that weed kills your brain cells or whatever, or
Yeah,
puts them to sleep or whatever. Well, psilocybin actually regrows your brain cells and rebuilds the neuro chemistry of those brain cells that have gone to sleep, and actually reconnects them. So it's called neurogenesis. So I don't know about it actually changing the DNA, but it does fix the brain. It heals the brain. Like, many people have overcome PTSD, um, addiction to narcotics, and heavy opioid addiction, and coming back from the war, the fear of death, all of these things, which I believe are good for you to overcome this trauma, overcome this fear and this anxiety, for something that grows out of the ground. You pick it up and you use it, and you take it as a treatment and as a medicine, and you say thank you. You make a spiritual ritual out of it, if you will, and it heals you.
mm,
And the Bible says that every good and perfect gift comes from above. And so, for somebody to kick pill addiction and opioid addiction, or over the fear of death or trauma from war and things like that, and Christians will say, well, the devil, it's just the devil. The devil's tricking them, and they're not really healed. Get out of here. The devil hasn't healed anybody. And so you have to look at the fruit of that thing. What is that individual's life like after that experience? And that's what
mm,
you have to judge. So um, that's what I look at, is the fruit. What happens after this experience? Just like in the churches, you said, people fall on us, Holy Spirit, fall. We need your encounter, Lord. But you do that every Sunday. Like, in the Bible, they had a lot of times they had one encounter, and it did change them forever, and they're still living their whole lives like unpacking this encounter. And for those who just like keep coming up like it's nothing, these really exotic experiences that are life changing, how it's now not enough for you. You have to keep having it, keep wanting. You're actually seeking the experience. So um, I champion that fruit, and I judge that fruit. I don't judge anything else but the fruit. And
mhm.
if somebody abuses medicine, that's on the person. If somebody becomes addicted, the cool thing with psilocybin, is really hard to be addicted to. Like, it really won't let you. People abuse marijuana, people become addicted to that, and do all types of things with it and mix it. They're doing pharmakia with weed. They're mixing it with chemicals and all kinds of
Yeah.
weird things, and getting strange hybrids, and this is that killer, man. This is that, and mixing it. What you call that? That's that Snoop triple OG. What is that? Purple. How did it turn purple? Well, we made it purple. What? That's weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I look at the fruit, and you shouldn't become addicted to any type of substance, but we do have a lot of different modalities and friends that are here to help. They're here to assist.
Mhm. And starting to close, I have one more question before I close here, but there was a time to where I was more stuck in a stream of destructive energy. So that means not being creative, not being like loving and at peace with myself. And that was very hard to get out of. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are stuck in those lower energies and lower streams and are just caught in that whole stream, just like a river, a raging current, just caught in it. They can't stop thinking about destructive behavior patterns. They just want to destroy themselves, things like that. So, how would you get someone out of that destructive energy and life force and into something and the energy of more hope and creativity to where they can start building their lives again?
Yeah, I think, they have to want it first, because, I don't think it really matters how bad we want it for them. But if the individual wants it and they still can't figure out how to get out of that rut, one of the biggest things for me is to find a place of gratitude. Like, find something to be thankful for immediately. Like, immediately find something. And as long as you can find it, you can touch it, you can bring it into your now moment. And gratitude and compassion, like, those are um, the concoctions in the scriptures for a miracle. Before Christ did anything, he gave thanks, and he blessed it, and he had compassion, and then in that energy he was able to birth something, to multiply something, to create a miracle for somebody else. So I would say find something in your life that you're grateful for. And it could be a family member, it could be a job. If it's neither nor, the simplest thing you have is just to take a deep breath in. And so I really love breath work. It's to take a breath in and just say thank you. Thank you, God, for the breath, the giver of life. Because if you have that breath in your lungs right now, there's still infinite potential. There's still possibility for you. There's still hope. And as long as your heart's beating, so you not only do you have the breath, but now you have breath and a heartbeat, and now you have a voice. So now you have the creative power that you can begin to speak to the things that are around you and begin to change your environment, your vibrational frequency. So
Mm.
finding something to be thankful for, and hopefully that grows for you. Hopefully you have so many things in your life. If you'll do a review, even childhood memories, that you're thankful for. It seems like they're gone, but they're not. They're still a part of you. Find something to be thankful for. Move into a place of gratitude, and that's the place where these miracles begin to happen. So that's where infinite abundance lies. That's where hope lies. All of that in that place to create and to draw from this energy of gratitude and thanksgiving.
Cool. You have a retreat coming up, right? Is that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you want to talk a little
Uh,
bit about that?
Yeah, October the 20th, coming up quick, man. I usually push them out, like spread them out far, but this one, I thought I did, but it was like, felt like I just booked it. But yeah, we been having these retreats, and I love them, man. We everything that we've been talking about, everything that I do, we get together in person and do these retreats and do them in Mobile, Alabama, and do breath work and go out in nature, stargaze, meditation, prayer. Um, we just have a good time. Do a cacao ceremony, and it's amazing to be able to present something like that and have people really travel from all over the U.S. to make it and to be a part of it. It's amazing to be able to see people in the flesh and give people a hug for the first time who've been listening to my podcast or my music or been a part of my community for years or whatever, to finally get together in the flesh, man. There's nothing like it. So the next one's coming up October the 20th. So really looking forward to that.
Awesome. And then my final question is going to be, where can people find you? And any last words?
Yes, sir. I'm pretty much on all platforms, but just type in TruthSeekah wherever you are, and there you'll find me. But my website is truthseekah.com, truth, SEEKAH.com. And come check me out, my podcast, my music, meditations, all that cool stuff. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, bro. Enjoyed it. And hope this touches a lot of people. Hope it blesses you. And hope you take this energy and run with it and expand it and continue to do whatever my work and my energy has done for you and everybody else's energy. You pay that forward to somebody else and be that conduit, man. You got it.
Thank
Excited
you.
for you, man.
I
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
And thank you for coming on as well.